On a dive trip to Hawaii some years ago, today's guest, Natalie Jones, was made aware of the damaging impact sunscreen was having on the health of the coral reef she was exploring. Determined to find a product that was more ocean friendly, Natalie researched and then eventually began developing her own product, Seasick Sunscreen, a brand that references her concern for the ocean's well-being. Kia ora, Natalie, and thanks for joining us for a koreo here at Wellington City Libraries. Start by telling us a little bit about your background and yourself.
Sure, kia ora Linda, ko Natalie Jones tōku ingoa, ko ngā waireki Ngā Te Apu tōku iwi, no Ingarangi Airani Kōtirana hoki o ka tūpuna. Thanks for having me here today. I'm the founder of Seasick Sunscreen Co. I started it back in 2019 after a dive trip to Hawaii, where I learned that the sunscreen that I'd been pouring on my body my entire life was filled with a whole lot of chemicals that are toxic to marine life, not to mention the single-use plastic bottles as well. So upon returning to Aotearoa, I went straight down to my local eco sort of health store and searched the shelves for something that I was happy to use, not just for the environment, but also something that was safe on my sensitive fair skin. And when I couldn't find it, I started making it myself.
Great. What was it about the products that are causing the issues with the coral environment?
So most sunscreens are made with chemical UV filters. That's what protects you against the sun. Things like oxybenzone, octocrylene, many of which have already been banned in popular dive destinations like Hawaii, Palau, Florida Keys, because in high concentrations they can be toxic to coral, fish and other marine life. That's especially a problem when you've got lots of swimmers or snorkelers in a small area and lots of sunscreen washing off their bodies into the ocean. Of course, plastic as well. Plastic sunscreen bottles are impossible or very difficult to recycle, so they end up straight in landfill or even worse, breaking down into microplastics and polluting our oceans.
You mentioned that some of these places are now legislating against certain ingredients. Where does Aotearoa stand on this?
As far as I'm aware, it's not on the cards yet to bring in any legislation about sunscreen chemicals, and to be honest, a whole lot of more research needs to be done first, I think, before we kind of go down that avenue. However, it is an issue here in Aotearoa. The mermaid pools up north, they were actually closed off because they were so polluted with rubbish, but also they found high concentrations of sunscreen chemicals in the pools, which was causing a problem for the marine life.
In a country with a high melanoma rate like we have, how can we know that products without chemical UV filters are protecting us just as effectively?
Yeah, so Seasick sunscreen's made with zinc oxide, which is actually like the original sun protection,
right.
But people it kind of went out of fashion because people didn't want the white ghost or cricketer look, just going about their day-to-day life, or if you're sunbathing at the beach. So yeah, it went out of fashion, and it's highly effective though. It's well proven to protect against both UV and UVB rays. But what's most important is that sunscreens are certified. Their SPF value has actually been scientifically tested. So I send off our sunscreen to a lab in Australia, and they test the SPF value on a bunch of people and give me a certification report at the end. Until September 2022, that was actually voluntary in New Zealand to have any sunscreen product tested to that standard, but now it's mandated, so all sunscreens being sold in Aotearoa should meet the Australia-New Zealand sunscreen standard.
Oh, that's good, that's reassuring. A lot of the concern appears to centre around coral reef environment, and we don't have a lot of that here in New Zealand. And you know, I, for one, have been probably part of the problem over the years, where I much prefer to go to Asia and the Pacific and swim in the sea than I do on the shores of the south coast, where it's a little bit colder. But to bring it closer to home, how is our own marine environment doing?
I mean, I think it's pretty well known that our marine life is not doing well. Mostly comes down to overfishing, habitat destruction and pollution. But my belief is that every small action counts and it all adds up. So we take a really holistic approach to sustainability with sunscreen. It's not just about the ingredients that it's made with, but being made here in Aotearoa. we try to keep our carbon footprint as low as possible. We use local people to do all the design, and all of those things add up to make it a really sustainable product. And we want to make sure that we're not putting anything into the ocean that could be further stressing our marine life, like chemicals or plastic.
And you're also supporting through social good enterprises, some local charitable trusts.
Yeah, that's a really important part of our business model. We operate as a social enterprise, which means we donate 2% of our revenue to local ocean conservation education. Over the last few years, we've been supporting a local Wellington charity called Love Rimu Rimu, and they're restoring Wellington's underwater seaweed green belts, which is pretty exciting stuff. They're basically the first people doing that kind of work in that space, so a lot of research going on, and they're monitoring how the impact of growing these or restoring these seaweed forests is having on the fish and other marine life.
I know, as someone who does live on the south coast within the marine reserve, we know that those kelp forests are so important for the diversity of our marine life out there on the edge of Cook Strait. So it's really important to look after them, isn't it?
Yeah, they need the habitat's really important. And I know, particularly in the Wellington region, there's an issue with the kina barrens, so there's not enough large fish to predate on the kina, and then they are destroying the kelp forest. So there's actually the local mana whenua here are doing some incredible research and work in that space.
Excellent. Now, your passion for ensuring the health of our oceans led to the development of your business, Seasick, but it hasn't been an overnight success story. Like lots of startups, you juggled full-time employment with business development, and in our pre-interview chat, you were quite candid about the fact it's been hard mahi. You referred to the dark night of the soul experience you had. What do you mean by that? And with hindsight, what steps might you take to perhaps put yourself first and do things a little differently?
Yeah, so back in October, I felt like everything in my business was going wrong. Everything was just a real struggle. And I went out for a couple of beers with some fellow founder mates, and they explained to me the dark night of the soul. So when you start out a project, you think it's going to be great, everything goes really well, just like starting a business. You see this idea go from nothing into something all of a sudden, and then it suddenly gets harder and harder and harder, and you sort of go down, 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 and the dark night of the souls is when you hit kind of rock bottom, I guess. And you have to make the decision whether to give up, either to give up or to find a way out of that. And thanks to my support network, they gave me some really great ideas and support that actually helped me kind of crawl my way back out of that place. And I managed to find answers to the problems that I was having and just push through it. And I've come out, a couple months later after that, feeling in a really good position with the business and really excited about it.
That's good. So you've got strategies moving forward to...
I've got strategies. Mostly that comes down to that support, people I can turn to with answers, and getting a bit of perspective as well. It's really hard to see that when you're down in that dark night of the soul, when everything is going wrong, but talking to other people who have been through that, and then you see them out on the other side, and also hearing their terrible stories and what's happened to them, all of that stuff just helped me kind of get through that rough time.
It's also easy, I think, to lose perspective in those early days when it does seem so exciting and you're running on adrenaline, and then it plateaus, and that's when you start going, are we going to get any more orders, or is anyone else going to buy my product? You do have to put as much effort into keeping yourself safe and healthy as you do into developing your products. But I think often small businesses just forget that until it's a bit too late. When you made the brave decision to give up the day job and go all out and focus on Seasick, you began with the Kokori Maori Business Accelerator program. Can you tell us a bit, how have you benefited from being part of that program?
Well, the Kokori Accelerator program is exactly what it sounds like. It accelerates your business. So you do about a year's worth of work in 12 weeks. So it was really, really full on. But one of the great things about that program was the connections that they formed. So they were able to connect me to people in the industry that had a lot more experience and basically were able to fast track the problem solving. And for me, the main thing that I've decided to focus on was upscaling product. So I used to make all the sunscreen at home in a big pot on my stove in 8-litre batches. And the Kokiri program helped give me, I guess, the courage and the support to outsource manufacture, and I'm now making it in 100-litre batches at a time. And to do that, I had to overcome a lot of challenges. There were some pretty big upfront costs as well, and they supported me with a $10,000 grant, so that gave me some financial backing as well. But really, it was just the confidence, having people behind you that were saying, you know, you can do this. Yeah.
As part of the Accelerator program, you were also paired with a mentor, weren't you, Natalie? What did you get out of that relationship? Does it still continue?
Yeah, so we met weekly throughout the program, and my mentor's role was just to, I guess, support me with whatever challenges was going on for me. I had so many different ideas. I was quite overwhelmed with all of the possibilities that I could try to achieve during Kokiri, and Amy really helped me to, I guess, sort through that and just to refocus. But I think one of the most kind of pivotal moments in my mentorship with her was on our very, very last meeting of the Kokiri program, and she asked me what would get me out of bed doing this job in 10 years' time. And I answered the question straight away. I knew the answer. I said, I want to be, you know, my business needs to be supporting my passion for conservation. I want to be working with charities and doing practical conservation work wherever Seasick is operating, whether that's here in Aotearoa, in the Pacific, or in other places around the world. And I realised after I answered that I hadn't really let myself dream about that possibility yet, because it seemed sort of like such a big goal and just like a dream. But she kind of helped me realise that, and she just said, okay, well, that's it. Like, that's your goal. Write that on a piece of paper, stick it up next to your bed or your desk, and look at it every day. And yeah, so I've that's really stuck with me. And our relationship does continue beyond the program. Like I said earlier, I was really struggling before Christmas last year, and I felt like giving up, so I gave her a call just out of the blue. I was like, Amy, I need you. And we had the most amazing conversation about defining our own success, and I realised that I was actually defining my success in a way that I thought other people wanted me to achieve. So I was trying to hit targets that maybe other people would see as being successful, and that conversation with her just completely turned that around. Once again, wrote it down on a piece of paper. I defined what my success looks like, and for me, part of that is looking after my own hauora and wellbeing, and so that sits next to my desk as well. So whenever things are getting really tough, I might not be making the sales that maybe I should, but if I'm feeling healthy and balanced, then for me, that's what my success looks like.
That comes back to what you were saying earlier about perspective and keeping your goals in perspective, not other people's goals as your perspective. So finally, what's great about operating a business from Wellington?
Oh, I love working here in Wellington. The business network is pretty incredible. There's so many other talented young entrepreneurs out there, so we meet regularly. We all help each other out, and particularly there's a pretty strong group of us that are into sustainability. So we're always sharing ideas, motivating each other, sharing in struggles as well, which again, as I mentioned earlier, that night I went out for those beers and talked about the issues I was facing. That was really pivotal in getting me out of that really difficult time. So I think it's the connections, and then also being in such a beautiful city surrounded by ocean and wildlife. It's very inspiring, and keeps driving me to do what I'm doing.
Well, thank you, Natalie. Thanks for your time. Kia ora, kia kaha.
Kia ora, thanks for having me.